Hello. Let me scoot up over here. What's going on, guys? Howdy, howdy. Can you guys hear me okay? I think my overlay went away. Nope, that's not it. Where is my overlay? That's This Week in BS. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Doing my best, and I messed up my own overlay. Hello, guys. So let me say hi to everyone in the chat. I'm tossing back coffee like there's no tomorrow. Hello, Mr. Shadow Kitty. Aunt Jer, what's up? Krabby Hermit, how you doing? Hello, Nether. Hello, Native Atheist. Sinister Porpoise is here. What's going on? KCA Randy. What's up, guys? Oh, goodness. So today, yes, coffee, the one thing that keeps me too. I need coffee as well. The intro that I got with the Batman is pretty cool because, that movie came out last weekend, I believe. It was last weekend. I went and saw it yesterday. It was amazing. I really enjoyed it. I think outside of the one with Heath Ledger as the Joker, I think, and of course you got the Tim Burton Batman films, which are pretty awesome in their own right for what they are. Um, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it. I kind of felt like, oh gosh, what's his name? He was in the Twilight films, that dude. Pattinson. That's his last name, Pattinson. I felt like his portrayal of Bruce Wayne was a little bit emo. I was expecting The Cure to bust out at any point in time, followed by possibly Depeche Mode. But I like The Cure and Depeche Mode. I thought it was a bit emo, his portrayal. But all in all, thought it was a pretty good film. Did feel a little long. It did feel a bit long. It's almost 3 hours long. Felt a teeny bit long. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. It was very gritty. It was, very dirty. That's kind of how they're portraying DC now, and sometimes it was always like that. Hello, Big Zebra. Nina's doing just fine. You guys wanna check out the science doggo, Lil Neen, my supervisor. Here she is. Grogu and Nina are buddies. She is the keeper of the Funko Pops. There we go. Yes, Batman has always been a very dark character. You're right, Sinister Porpoise. Are you saying that Batman isn't emo? No, he is. Microbloganism. It felt like it was very kind of I'm super emo, like I don't know. It was like a super emo version of Batman. It was unlike any Bruce Wayne I have seen previously. They really didn't go with the playboy aspect of Batman. They just kind of he was not interested in any of that. Um I'd really like to see I'd really like to see a Batman film where Mr. Freeze, since we were talking about climate change in the side chat here. Really like to see a Batman film where Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy are climate scientists and they're activists and they fight against billionaire trust fund boys who continue to fuel the the fossil fuel world and do not invest in renewable energies. I think I would like to see that film. I really would. I really would. And I feel like DC might be up for it because of the tone and direction of the story in the latest Batman film. It was pretty cool. Hey, Tesla Ranger. Um, I can't help but think a little bit that Batman is a little bit selfish though. I mean, come on. He's like, I gotta fight crime. Why couldn't he just, I don't know, funnel some of that money into housing for like people, better health care and mental health, you know, opportunities, um, better the school districts, you know. I feel like he's a little bit selfish. He just wants to go around and be a vigilante, which in its own right, that sounds pretty fun, doesn't it? Sounds pretty fun to just throw on a cape and run around and beat the tar out of bad guys. I mean, sure. But it seems like, and to be fair, I love Batman stuff. I love Catwoman stuff. I mean, it's all fun. I can't help but reflect on some of these things. Could Bruce Wayne be the vigilante and help better Gotham City by giving better opportunities to those individuals who are struggling the most? And it's interesting because this Batman film kinda touches on that. This Batman film kinda touches on that, and I like that. Some people are saying, "It's too woke." I'm like, "But come on, man, Gotham City, it's rife with problems, all kinds of political corruption." It's just that's just what it is. Let's see. Uh, unre Joker is a hero against unrestrained capitalism. It's coming. Probably. Probably, Sinister Porpoise. Nether says, with the money Wayne Enterprises must have in the DCU, Wayne could fix all of Gotham's social problems easily. And then you consider, I used to work for the Warner Brothers studio store back in the day, and Batman versus Superman was an animated film. It was great. And be honest, a lot of the DC animated films are fantastic. They really are. And Bruce Wayne is considering getting into business with Lex Luthor. I wanna do more. I wanna see more of that. Does Wayne Tech does Wayne have stocks in Luthor Core? That's a story, isn't it? That's a story. Luthor Core. Luthor Core, maybe they fund a lot of fossil fuel stuff. That's the story. And then Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy ain't so bad because Mr. Freeze wants to save the polar ice caps, and Poison Ivy is all about rainforest preservation and saving the boreal forest. I think that would be cool. I wanna see that. If Bruce has an insurance company, then beating up thugs literally earns him money because it means the company can increase the price. Microvolcanism. Can you imagine what car insurance is like in Gotham City? It's probably like some towns in New Jersey. They will not give you car insurance. It's really hard to get affordable car insurance in New Jersey. Oh my goodness. Is Bruce Wayne getting richer at the expense of Gotham? Discuss. Wealth redistribution, Tesla Ranger. They touch on some of that um in this film. It's really weird. It's a new take I haven't seen. Well, I haven't really seen with Bruce Wayne before. Uh there's talk about his family history in politics and stuff like that. And promises of giving back to the community to help deal with some of these poverty issues, and it's funny because the way that Bruce Wayne is portrayed, and I don't wanna give you any spoilers, I'm not gonna give you any spoilers. The way that Bruce Wayne is portrayed in this particular film is, that he is completely disinterested in business. He just doesn't doesn't do any checks or, go back through and see where money's going. He doesn't do any of that. He's been completely disconnected from the business side of life. And I can't help but go, "Okay." And this is where I start to go, I'm like, "Is DC starting to go the Marvel realm?" Now hear me out. We look at the first Iron Man. First Iron Man, Tony Stark finds out that some of his money's being funneled into dirty things, right? And then he decides, "Well, I'm just not gonna make weapons anymore. This is not cool." And so he starts to have this, um, cognitive dissonance moment where he sees what's going on with his company, and he can't believe that money is being funneled to hurt other people. And that's one of the reasons why he shifts. Also, the fact that one of his own missiles nearly killed him. Um, so I'm starting to think maybe DC is going, let's redo some origin stories and have what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has, MCU has. And now they're kind of going back and redoing some of these origin stories to follow the formula that Marvel has shown to work so very well. Um, so I don't know. Remember those woke Captain America comics from the 40s? Yes, I know. Captain America was made super woke. Criminals should get Batman insurance. They probably should. Check out this comic about Poison Ivy being a good guy. Awesome, I will. Hey Maya, how you doing? So who is doing the research for all his Avengers weapon tech? Well, see, here's the thing that's cool, I think. And I have asked this question before. Who would win in a fight? Is it Tony Stark or is it Bruce Wayne? Well, that depends. That depends. I do not while Bruce Wayne is very intelligent, he is not an engineer. I don't think he's really an engineer, not on the level that Tony Stark is. Um, Tony Stark was a child prodigy scientist type. Um, Bruce Wayne just gets his hands on stuff and tries to put it together. It wasn't until Lucius Fox came along in Wayne, in for Wayne Tech, did stuff start really taking off, to where um, Bruce could have all kinds of tech. Well, see, here's the thing. If Bruce gets time to prepare, possibly, then he wins. If not, it's Tony. I agree. If you just drop Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark in a city, an evacuated city, and said, "Y'all got to fight," Tony could put together pretty solid weaponry and knock him out of the park. Batman can hold his own in a fist to fist. You know what I mean? He's a well trained fighter. And he's good at detective skills, right? He's good at detective skills. But so is Tony Stark. But what Tony Stark has on Bruce Wayne is he understands all of the stuff that Lucius Fox does. So you got Lucius Fox, and then in Tony Stark's mind, but you've got the bulk tank aspect of Bruce Wayne where he can just go in and start swinging. You know what I mean? Bruce Wayne can fight. Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne compared together, no tech. I mean, Bruce Wayne would probably kick his butt. Bruce is more of a risk taker than Stark. I don't know. Stark was willing to die uh to save the planet from in that first Avengers where he went into space. Um, he was ready to just die for that, but, so is Bruce Wayne. And I think that's one of the interesting things about Tony Stark in the MCU. Captain America would always say, "You're not the guy that would lay on the grenade." And then when you put all of the films together and you look at Tony Stark's arc of his character, yes, he was. Um, he was from the beginning. It just became more pronounced in the end. Uh, but there you go. I thought it's pretty interesting. I really enjoyed the Batman film. So I had to bring that up before we talk about science communication. Science or communication in general. Yeah, in that 1989 Batman film, he can't figure out who killed his parents. I have to say I really like Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. I mean, it's really hard to not like Michael Keaton in general, but he was a fantastic Batman. He really, really was. Um, he really was. I can't knock him at all, you know? But given that film, the Tim Burton aspects of Batman with those films, those are way more cartoony, and they're meant to be like looking at a moving comic book. I mean, you're looking at stuff that's meant to be a moving version of the comic book. It's a bit different, and given the storylines are a bit different, but there you go. That was my first Batman movie. I thought it was great, Maya. In the Batman versus Iron Man death battle, Tony wins probably, be honest. Tony can go to a Home Depot and get stuff together and make a bomb, blow up half the city. Um, so the race there would be, can Bruce Wayne knock out Tony Stark before he has time to blow up half a city? And then keep in mind the city's evacuated. All right. That would be the thing. Batman's gonna have to track Tony Stark to beat the tar out of him before he can make something to knock out half a city. I mean, that's the challenge. Tim Burton's movies are pretty great. Speaking of which, Beetlejuice 2 is coming out soon. Handbook for the recently deceased. Beetlejuice 2 is coming out soon. And there's a Broadway musical. Oh my goodness. Okay. And Sinister Porpoise is talking about Deadpool versus Pinkie Pie. Yes. Beetlejuice 2 is coming out with many from the original cast, and um let me see if okay, so for Parade, here is I'll just put a link here in the chat. And there is a Broadway musical. I don't know about the Broadway musical as much. I'm pretty excited about the film. There is all signs point to yes. Um, Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder have signed on. I think so. The third one's the Charmer. That's right, Mr. Shadow Kitty. I think the film came out 30 years ago. So that's fun. Let me see if I can find Beetlejuice the musical. Uh, yeah, here it is. Uh, it's a thing. Oh, I should watch Tim Burton's Hansel and Gretel. I have to say, Big Fish was one of my favorite films that Tim Burton did. It's just so beautiful. So, Beetlejuice is at the Marquis Theater on Broadway, if you're curious. Oh, wait, I messed up. I was put in the wrong. Ugh. Y'all just type in Beetlejuice musical. I thought I got the right link, and I just retyped in the thing for the second film. It's a morning, isn't it? Okay. So let's see. I set today to talk about how to communicate with people. Um, and it seems like, I don't know, and I've talked about this before. Let me pull up an article that I've done. Um, uh, okay. Here we go. I'm going to pull this up. Where is it? Where is it? Here we go. So on my website, I write a lot of different things. You'd have to be curious and rich, yeah. All right. So let's have a look kind of in and as we're gearing up to talk about some of the things today on language, perception, science communication. How you talk to people is very, very important. And today I want to talk about your goals in communicating with people and how to communicate with people. Um, and you set the tone for your engagement, particularly with people online. Um, this I've had a very interesting week, actually, a very interesting couple of weeks. I don't want to give these groups too much press because it's just not worth it. Um, but I will say that I've been targeted by what I would call an extremist group. They are anti adoption, and what they want seems to be impossible. I mean, no adoption at all. They do not want adoption at all. And in a world that we live in, it's not possible to do that. I'll pull up an article really quick from Wired, and I'll post that here. You can read this later. Um, I've shared this article with a lot of people. I've had various in they're not anti-abortion actually. They're pro-choice because they want every child to be with their birth mother, which, would be a lovely thing to happen. And that would be awesome if we could have that. But that's not how the world works. And people don't work that way either. We don't all get to stay with birth mothers forever. And this group thinks that any kind of adoption traumatizes a child. Well, maybe, but you cannot live a life without trauma. Yes, Crabby Hermit. So I'm going to let you guys read this article in your own time and feel free to message me and let me know what you think about it. One of the people that's part of this organization contacted my work this week because they got upset about me talking about a paper that they had posted. They said I was defaming them and I was hurting their reputation. But that individual encourages people in this these groups to contact people's work And they did that to a friend of mine. They contacted a friend of mine's work. And you know what happened, guys? Nothing. And you wanna know why nothing happened? Because they went and read the posts of the people, parts of this group here. They read those posts, and it discounted their entire argument about whatever they decided to complain about my friend on. He used a swear word on a thread in response to a different person about how that, in that particular tweet, it basically implied that adoption is human trafficking. And my friend said, no, this is crap. Anyone who tells me what my motives are can F off. That's all right. So the person who contacted my work encouraged another person in one of these groups to call my friend's job. After my friend had posted that tweet, they were dogpiled on by a whole bunch of others that are extremists and anti-adoption. And what they say is they'll call the job and say, well, they're swearing at adoptees on the internet. And then what do? You go to your boss and you say, look, this is what I said. Here's what they're saying. And then the boss goes, yeah, that's messed up what they're saying. So I defended my friend. And you can read, like I said, you can read more about it. It's pretty terrible. I don't agree with the couple in here putting ads trying to adopt a baby on Facebook. I think that's pretty gross. I agree that's pretty gross. But I don't agree with harassing people to the point it becomes criminal. So when I had after last weekend, it's got things escalated towards me. I had my own hashtag for a little bit on Twitter. They were targeting me. People who didn't even know what was going on were jumping on what we call bandwagon bias to hop over and start attacking me because they said I'm not listening. Well, I preemptively blocked a lot of these people because I saw that they encourage people to call your job. And they encourage people to gang up on you. They incite harassment. I'm like, I don't want this. So I blocked all of them, which I can do on Twitter. It doesn't make me a bad person to not want to be harassed by people. Doesn't make me a bad person. And then some adoptees reached out to me and told me what, they think and what they're doing. And there were some who are afraid to even speak up because they get targeted. Hello, Harmonica Man. They get targeted by their own group and told that, well, they'll just, they just, their lived experiences aren't what reality is. So even if you have adoptees who don't agree with this, their lived experiences aren't accepted because they just don't know yet. They just don't know yet. They'll just figure it out. They'll figure it out someday. But, you can't speak out against this group, even if you're an adoptee. So there's no winning. There's no winning at all. And I refuse to engage in any discussion with anybody who wants to call people's jobs or swear about them or call them evil because they blocked you. I don't want to do any of that. And I shouldn't have to. We can have a civil discussion. So if people can't be respectful and civil, I'm not going to talk to them because I don't have to. I don't have to listen to anybody. They don't have to listen to me. That's fine. I don't have to listen to them. But I'm also not going to take anybody's crap. So after the weekend that escalated with people from this group, from these various groups. I went and had a meeting with my boss to let him know what was going on. My boss, who is super freaking supportive, as is the institution where I'm at. Now, keep in mind, guys, I don't have anywhere on anything that's public for my science communication account where I work. Not at all. Because I know people like this exist and cause issues because I've got experience with that. Hey, Titan, I've got experience with that. I've got a lot of experience with that. Hey, Liquid Flames. And since I've got a lot of experience with that, I know what to do when people start acting like this. So I filed 2 police reports on Monday, one for a person in Canada and one for somebody in Arkansas. Because I said, I don't want you to contact me. And they continued to attempt to harass me through my employer. And also by inciting harassment on social media for people to come and harass me directly, claiming that they're victims. No, you're not a victim because I blocked you and don't want to talk to you. And you're not a victim when I post screenshots of the awful things that you say. And you're not a victim if I say, hey, maybe you shouldn't call people's work because you don't like what they say. Because what happens? The employer looks at what you say and they go, oh, yeah, what these groups say, there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with what they're saying and how they communicate and treat people. Then they discount everything that you've posted. And then what we do is we go and file police reports with your name on it because you contacted our jobs. Now there's a record. There's a paper trail. And I knew exactly who it was before I was told the complaint because I was read part of it. And I'm like, I know who this is. And as soon as I got off the phone with HR, I filed a police report because I said, I don't want to talk to you. So what I want to do is talk about how do you communicate with people if you want them to listen to you, if you want them to talk to you, if you want to get across what your points are, harassing them at their job, inciting harassment on social media, encouraging bandwagon bias to where people will just come together and just jump on your bandwagon for your cause, half cocked and not fully informed of what's going on. These people were reading, they would go to my website. I would block them. They would go to my website and stalk my RSS feed of my tweets. I have the screenshots of that. And they would think everything I posted was about them. And it wasn't. There's one image running around where somebody just screenshot as many tweets as they could and crammed it in and said, this is where ScientistMel is like harassing adoptees. 130 tweets in 3 days. You can't even read what the tweets say. And a lot of them are benign and have nothing to do with these people. And that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. You're not doing if you're doing this, it's not working. The harassment is not working. None of this is working in your favor. And when you call people's jobs, that just means those people can file a police report now. So thank you for calling my job. No, actually, no, not thank you. I'm not really happy somebody called my job. But what's sad is I had to file a police report because of it. Some individuals don't understand. No means no. Yes, documentation is important. So I've started files and I'm going to call the Southern Poverty Law Center and see if they're aware of the targeted harassment campaigns they do against infertile women, surrogate mothers, IVF, and even gay families who adopt. Um, so I'm going to contact them and see if they have any information about these groups, or at least let them know. Um, no, I'm not thanking you for contacting my job. But anytime you do that, there's a record that starts, and you can file a police report for harassment. And anytime you contact somebody after that, it's considered criminal harassment. These people had their husbands messaging me on Twitter. You need to stop harassing my wife. I didn't harass your wife. I haven't spoken to your wife. I don't want to speak to your wife. Your wife might need to take a break off of social media if your wife thinks everything I tweet is about her. That's a problem. Take a break. I'm not talking about your wife. That's how messed up it is. And when you're that close to somebody who's doing stuff like that, you don't think as critically because you're jumping on bandwagon bias. You're just hopping on that and just riding that train without all of the information. So it's really, really messed up. One second. I'm getting an emergency text from a family member. Okay, just so you guys know, I do have a nephew with cancer, so I'm trying to navigate some of that as well as other things. So I appreciate your patience. No, everything's okay. All right. Everything's all right. Everything's all right. Um, so they're on I think they only have 5 more rounds of chemo left. He had 4 surgeries in January. Um, his wound is healing all right, but he has an infection inside the wound, and they might have to open him up again and clear it all out. It's all right. But that's not what this is about. So, um all right. So let's talk about how to talk with people. All right. Let me address a bit of the chat first. All righty. So yes, there are some people. Just one second. Okay. Sinister Porpoise mentions sometimes, however, especially with transphobes, civil discussion is impossible. Yes. And some of what that group talks about is very, very turfy. Um, like, you know, babies have to be with their birth mothers. Somebody post a meme, not a meme, but like an image where a lot of adoption parents say, "You were born from my heart." They say, "Well, you were born from my heart's vagina." And I'm like, this is super turfy. Very trans exclusion for that. Um, and there's no civil discourse or civil discussion. Um, and it's really difficult because I would like to learn. And fortunately, I've had some people reach out to me and give me some literature so I could read up on it. And I agree largely with a lot of stuff about reform for adoption. I absolutely agree. But that's no longer what people are interested in discussing, particularly when you sit there and say, I agree with you. I agree with you. You have something that ends up coming out called the nasty effect. Are you guys familiar with the nasty effect? Are you guys familiar with the nasty effect? Because that's a pretty cool study that's come out recently. Um, let me find. There was a real here it is. Here's a really cool article. I'm gonna share this with you guys. The nasty effect. Not just a Janet Jackson song, Nasty Boys. NPR wrote an article about this study, and we can pull up the study and dig into it a bit more. How comments color comprehension. This is a problem. This was posted back in March 2013. A lot of people, of course, use online communication as one of their main ways of connecting with the world, right? So researchers, they basically call this. It's a little bit like the Wild West. The trolls are winning. But essentially, what this research suggests and what that paper suggests is rude comments on articles can even change the way we interpret the news. So if you post something that's factual and you're discussing a thing that's factual, if people post lots of rude comments on it, it's going to skew your perception of what the article is. That's called the nasty effect. All right. So Dominic Brossard, the co-author of the study, she said it's essentially online discourses like the Wild West. Those trolls she's referring to are commenters who make contributions designed to divert online conversations. All right, so more than 1,000 subjects reviewed this blog post about pros and cons of nanotechnology from a Canadian newspaper that discussed the water contamination risks of nanosilver particles and the antibacterial benefits. So half of the people, half of that 1,000, saw polite comments, and the other half saw rude comments saying, if you don't see the benefits of using nanotechnology in this product, you're an idiot. So what the researcher said is, there are the people that were exposed to the polite comments didn't change their views really about the issue covering the story, versus the people that did see the rude comments became polarized. They became more against the technology that was covered in the story. So if you see all those rude comments, whether it's for or against what's in the story, it's going to skew your perception of that particular story. But this is just this is kind of one of many cognitive biases. The person who delivers the news first and how they use their tone, that's going to be believed more than what the actual facts are. So the nasty effect, that's not it. Here is the article. If you want to have a look, it is open source, so you can read it. Online incivility and risk perceptions of emerging technologies. Post restores my faith in humanity. Comment sections kills it again. Exactly. The comment sections. So right now, because if you've read my Twitter, I was false flagged heavily by those individuals. And now it says on my profile, guys, I have sensitive content on my Twitter. I mean, I gotta say, the pictures of my French toast that I made out of Irish soda bread, they are too sexy for Twitter. And then once I had a Belgian waffle and it was covered in berries. That just it's highly sensitive. Clutch your pearls and think of the children. Um, but every single one of my pictures, links, memes, even if it's a Twitter searched GIF image, has a warning on it. And people who go and friend me on Twitter, they're like, "It says that are you sure you want to see this content?" So it's really had a backward effect. It's had a backwards effect. I've actually gotten an increase in followers because they false flagged me so hard that Twitter has set that to permanent on my account. So now when people go to look, they're like, "Oh yeah, I want to follow her." And psh, numbers increase. That just means more people are going to get scientific literacy and more pictures of food and me going to Batman movies and pictures of my dog. I posted a really sexy picture of a snowstorm last night. I'm surprised I'm still allowed on the internet. But there you go. So here, we got this article. It's funny. Liquid Flame says, "That's very interesting. I've been shouting into the void about blatant disinformation. But if rude comments alone can change perception of facts, then we are doomed." Yes, we are. So when people start screaming at me on the internet and yelling at me on the internet, and other people who've never interacted with me are like, "Well, we've got to go and yell at her too." And I'm sitting here going, "Guys, I agree with a lot of what you say, just not on the harassing people and calling their jobs." That's literally my stance. Um, but that's lost. That's all lost due to the nasty effect. Doesn't matter what I say. They're going to perceive me as a bad person. And then when they call my job and I show my job what they say my job is like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." Like, okay. Um, so whatever they were trying to do didn't work. Um, and yelling at people in the internet doesn't work, you know. It doesn't work. So this was an interesting study. Let's look at I have so much stuff. Oh yeah, this was an article that I wrote. Let me This is a little essay piece that I wrote. Essay, article, whatever you want to call it. Science, communication, language, and perception. While I am not an expert in, lots of things, I am an expert on how to talk to people. And I am an expert on knowing when to walk away from a situation. Um, and just like, nope. Some things are just not going to work. So here, I've got within this, one of the things I talk about is how are you going, I mean, when you're trying to discuss things with people, whether it's sensitive topics, if it's sensitive topics or, hard science, you're trying to get people to, you know, get people to listen to what you say. Nether says the only situation where I would approve of calling the employer is the "Did you know your employee was marching at a Nazi rally? Are you okay with that?" I mean, yeah, I mean, but me critiquing a paper or asking for scientific input from the community about something which is exactly what academics do all the time. Calling because you don't like me and you don't like me saying you shouldn't call people's jobs over a small comment like that. Um, then they call my jobs saying I'm trying to ruin their reputation. I'm like, I've blocked everybody who's your friend. None of them are gonna. Why do you care? Um, it just feeds. It works negatively against you, is what I'm saying. So if you can't be civil online and you're super rude and you're not nice, you have to ask yourself, what is your goal of your communication? I feel like the study is missing a group exposed to both civil and uncivil civil comments like you would see in real life. Yeah. So they were hoping that I would get in trouble for critiquing a paper that's a opinion perspective piece because it's literally posted as perspective. It's not empirical research where you do like, statistical stuff. It's not that at all. And that's what I was saying. And they said that I was defaming them, saying it wasn't research and it was all anecdotal based on their personal experiences, which there's nothing wrong with that. And I say that over and over again. But again, the nasty effect, right? Hey, Doc Fearsome, the nasty effect. It doesn't matter. Perceptions are already skewed. So you have to ask yourself when you're engaging people online, whether in this article that I wrote, it's about how to communicate science. What is your goal? What is your goal? What do you hope to gain from interacting with certain people on the internet? Sometimes I use teachable moments and I'm like, guys, don't do this. This isn't cool. Don't do this. Just because somebody disagrees with you, that's like, you know, not cool to sit there and harass them because they do something, you know, like a gay family adopting a kid. That doesn't give you the right to harass them and call their work because you disagree with it. And you got upset because they emotionally responded to something awful that you posted. That's not fair. That's not what you do. And your goal gets lost. What is your goal? What is the point of all that? So when I try to relate and talk to people, you know, teachable moments. Often that's one thing that I do. I talk about what not to do sometimes. There's certain studies and reports that have run the gambit when it comes to um, talking to people about science. We had how people receive information and how they're influenced by language as well as bias can contribute to what they buy into. There's all kinds of stuff. People impressed by profound statements like live, laugh, love, or no matter where you go, there you are. I don't know. I can't think of a profound statement without it sounding ridiculous. You know, hearing smart language has an influence over reading smart language. Language alters perception. How you speak to people is going to shift their perception of you. Accents alter perceptions of images. Plain language often clears up misconceptions. All kinds of stuff on confirmation bias. People will ignore facts, and facts will even backfire because of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is awful. And when somebody is faced with facts that counter their personal beliefs, their well held personal beliefs, then it's painful. And they will look for whatever they can to feel better. And that often is confirmation bias. They will find things from um, perceived figures of authority in order to make them feel better about themselves. Rhyming will increase the perceived truth of a statement. Well, that's neat. I really like the book Bad Science by Ben Goldacre. If you haven't read it, check it out. It's really great. Sciencey sounding words influence perception of credibility. Intelligence and language are intermixed. Language affects perception. You can just take a look at an intro to psych book. Needless to say, how content is presented to individuals of whom you are trying to inform can easily go one way or another. People can and do believe profound BS if they lack the ability to detect said BS. Using scientific terminology gives credibility to individuals, even if those words are misused. And at the same time, too much difficult or technical verbiage or jargon can dissuade people from listening. So there's all kinds of ways to communicate. And it's really important that you choose your words of delivery carefully. Keep your bias in check. Harvard President Larry Summers was fired from his position for his choice of words, and bias came through in a speech he delivered. You can take online tests to kind of figure out what your bias is. You need to speak with authority, but in simplistic terms. If you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. That's essentially it. Remove yourself as a threat to a person's belief system. That right there. You can try, but once people have decided that you are an enemy or a bad person, it's really hard to undo that, particularly if they don't know you as a person, which is another reason why once discussions get rude, or if I see somebody harassing people on the internet, I'm just, if there's somebody I care about, I'll try to go in and defend them. But I'll also go and block those people. Um, there's no productive discourse there. A lot of these individuals have that tribe mentality. Yeah, I hear you. So confirmation bias is something everyone has on some level. We do have it, and that doesn't make us bad people because we have bias, but it's important to know that we do have it, and that might play a role in the decisions we can make. Taking new information that potentially conflicts with core belief systems is exceedingly painful for many people. People tend to surround themselves who think similarly to them. That's that tribe mentality, guys. That's why we see people that will dogpile on somebody else, because they're like, well, they're one of us. We've got to go and attack this person, even if they don't have all of the facts. They will dogpile. We see this all the time online. People dogpiling on other people, and they'll incite harassment, trying to get the rest of the tribe to go and attack, even if the rest of the tribe does not have all of the information. There is comfort. There is comfort to be found in being a part of a tribe. This tribe helps people cope with loss, pain, and offers support in times of trouble. This tribe will have similar core beliefs that unite them. While there are some positive aspects of having a group who supports you, it becomes problematic when core beliefs cause issues for other people in the world. So you can have these core beliefs, but if your core beliefs include oppressing under other people, particularly if they're already marginalized, like infertile women and LGBTQ plus people, they're already marginalized. And further oppressing them more and going even beyond that into harassment, that becomes a problem. That becomes a problem. I mean, it's nice to have your tribe. It's nice. But your tribe also needs to be able to self-regulate. You need somebody. And I do have people that do this for me. They will pull me aside and say, Mel, you really need to take a shower. You got food stuck in your teeth. You smell like cheese and you're hanging your butt outside of the window. You're going to rein it in. Rein it in, girl. Rein it in. And I need that sometimes. And I'm thankful that I have people that will be honest with me and tell me, Mel, come on, man. Go take a walk or something. Get you some sunshine. You just air out your hair. Oh my God. I think I saw a bird's nest in it. You need people. You need people to do that for you. So, when you consider that these groups focus on the tribe mentality and core beliefs, they actively accept evidence that reinforces these core belief systems. Sometimes this evidence is blatantly false to people outside of the tribe, but people will ignore belief contradicting facts because it goes against the safety of the tribe. Now, go back and read that. They will ignore belief contradicting facts because it goes against what they feel is safety for the tribe. They see the person presenting the facts as foreign and or a threat. So it's really important to remove yourself as a threat to a person and their tribe. And sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you can't do that. You can all best efforts, you've done the best you can, and sometimes you cannot remove yourself as a threat. So it's just best to no longer engage. And I tried this. Discuss the elephant in the room. State that we are people who care about others and that it is okay for us to not have the same beliefs. Be caring and considerate, allowing the person a space to both hold on to their beliefs and hear the evidence without fear of a fight. That doesn't work if somebody is already wanting a fight. If they were already wanting a fight. And usually the people that are already wanting a fight, it's this right here. I want to make a note that some beliefs are oppressive and harmful. Nazis, sexism, racism, ableism. Come on. It is important to note that people who subscribe to such thought processes can escalate to potentially dangerous levels. Part of that could be even criminal harassment, like calling your job. Many of these individuals are irrational and or outright evil. This type of thinking has not shown to be overcome with reason alone, as we have had entire wars over it, as well as civil rights movements, in order to overcome such oppressive thinking. In this particular article, I'm focusing on the reachable and rational people. Reachable and rational people. So you have to ask yourself, when you're dealing with people who do not behave rationally, who resort to jinx liquid flames, like calling a job jinx. There you go. If you're dealing with irrational people, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I don't have time to deal with that. This is why I don't do debates. This is why I don't debate flat earthers. I don't debate pro-lifers. I don't debate anti-vaxxers. I don't debate or often engage. I might point out, hey, don't do this. This is the wrong information, particularly if they're a large platform like Seth Rogen. Oh my gosh. I would not, God, I don't think I would ever appear on Seth Rogen's podcast. I don't think I ever would do that. I would have to I would have to be heavily convinced that he was willing to learn before I would hop onto a podcast like that. Um, you have to you ha you have to walk with caution. So, this is where I think it's important. Know when to walk away. Um, Sometimes the urge to keep connecting up to correcting a person becomes quite strong. So after trying to remove yourself as a threat, to encourage someone to even listen to you, it is counterproductive to continue to push when someone starts pushing back. Offer the evidence, be willing to talk about it another time, be polite and kind in interacting with a resistant person, leave the discussion before it escalates. I have tried to do that many, many times with that extremist group. And it took me getting the police involved before they would leave me alone. Now, if you're dealing with somebody that's super emotional about a thing, they might be a fact resistant person. And they're more likely to talk about the evidence later if you have respected their boundaries. You got to respect their boundaries and left the discussion without aggression. So, what is your goal? Um, what is your goal? And my goal is I cannot reason with irrational people and unreasonable people. I cannot reason with unreasonable people. And I don't try to. Um, I have enough going on in my life. I'm pretty freaking busy and I'm happy with my life. And if somebody's not going to listen to me and they just want somebody to scream at and they just want me to stand there and take them screaming at me, I'm not going to do that. It's much like if you were walking around outside and you have somebody screaming at you, if you have somebody screaming at you at the street, calling you a sinner and that you're going to burn in hell, I'm just going to put on my headphones and I'm going to walk away and I'm not going to take that person seriously. They're condemning everybody. They're yelling at everyone. And they may have that screaming might come from a deep sense of trauma, a deep sense of pain, caused by trauma. But I'm not a therapist and it's not my job to try to help that person if they're going to scream at me and treat me poorly. I'm not going to do that. I would like to help as many people as I can, but I'm not going to help people if they're abusive towards me or others. I can't do it. That's my boundary. And my boundaries are okay. It's okay to have boundaries. I highly recommend them. Say, when you cross a certain boundary, I'm going to get the police involved. That's how it is. Now, I've tried really hard to be approachable for everyone, even people who do not share my perspectives and or belief systems. The only time I shut out a person is if that individual becomes toxic, overtly aggressive, harmful, rude, etc. I refuse to belittle people who think differently from me. This is counterproductive to my overall goal, which is offering an accessible science to anyone who is willing to learn. Now, for the people, see, there's my RSS feed for my tweets that people say that they go to my website and try to figure out. Now, look when I wrote this. I wrote this on March 4th, 2018, 4 years ago. So what I do on Twitter is nothing new. I block, ignore, and move on. I always have. I've done this for years. I've been in science communication since about 2017. And this has always This has always been what I do. Block, ignore, and move on. Um, and sometimes I share my experiences as teachable moments as to why certain things don't work. Harassing people online as a form of trying to get change to happen, it doesn't work. It doesn't work any more than me sitting there screaming at people who don't believe in evolution. I don't. I had to teach. I had to teach evolution to kids in the Bible Belt, and it was controversial. So I want to point out a really cool article. How do we have hard conversations? Let I've got so much stuff here. All right, this is pretty good. So this is from Vanderbilt right here because I have hard conversations in my classroom and I teach chemistry. Y'all already know this. College chemistry. You already know this. So this one, difficult dialogues. My whole job sometimes is having hard conversations with students. And sometimes when I was teaching high school, parents. Um, Vanderbilt, this is a center for teaching. And at my current institution, I'm a part of the Center for Teaching, helping professors learn how to talk to students. That's part of my actual job. So when people say I'm being awful on the internet and they call my job is like, yeah, nah, we already know about her. That ain't it. And then they go look at what I said and like, yeah, nah. It's counterproductive, guys. That's the word of the day. Sorry. Let me come over here. I'm going to blow this up over here. Y'all can see it a bit better. You'll see a lot of similarities to what I do. When I was teaching evolution, this is pretty much what I did every single semester or every single year that I taught high school. Before the course even begins, do some thinking about what topics in your subject area might be controversial in the classroom. I bring up, even in college, I bring up the lack of diversity in STEM. I talk about how certain within the history of science, um, research mentors have taken their students' evidence and taken credit for it. Um, about the silencing of Black women in STEM. I talk about all of these things and I talk about them and open a space and I ask other students what they think about stuff like this. I also make fun of bad science in my classroom. Just was making fun of Gwyneth Paltrow earlier this week. It was hilarious. And then other students were asking me, have you heard of this thing? And then I would bring it up and we'd talk about it. So some issues might create certain conflicts. So I've talked about things like this in my classroom, and I use it as a teachable moment to try to help students to get what they think about it and what we can do to do better next time. So if you have topics that are difficult, you sit there and think, okay, what could be some of these things? Hot button, varying interpretations of religion, race, gender, sexuality, genetic testing, evolution, immigration, and many more. So there's lots of hot button issues. So it's important, and some of these affect, some of my students. But and it's really important that people know that there's lots of resources available and there is free help for individuals who are suffering under certain social issues. Once you've identified these topics that are most likely to produce tense conversations, reflect on how such conversations might actually contribute to rather than detract from your overall learning goals for the course. Do your learning and goals including encouraging students to think critically. All of mine do. So I can bring up social issues within the classroom that are meaningful to my students and talk about this is why you need a little bit of chemistry in your life. So when you know when somebody's trying to hustle you, trying to get your money, you can just look this up and you can help your family and your friends in your life. And it's important for us to talk about the lack of diversity in STEM. It's important for us to note that sexism exists and racism exists. What can we do to overcome that? Those are all relevant topics to chemistry. um, how a lack of understanding science and a lack of understanding chemistry can push individuals to adopt horrible perspectives because they just don't understand and they're afraid. Um, these difficult dialogues may be an opportunity to foster these skills in your students. For information on setting them for those course, they've got teaching guides there. So this is where I come from. When I engage people online, my goal, I want to learn and I want to educate as well. And I want to engage in meaningful discourse. You set the tone from the beginning. You set the tone of your engagement from the beginning. So when you engage a person online, you are setting that tone. And now sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, they're just angry and they're just going to scream at you no matter what. There's nothing you can do about that. But how you conduct yourself online, it does actually matter. Always use a respectful tone. No interrupting or yelling, no name calling or other character attacks. Ask questions when you do not understand. Do not assume you know what others are thinking. Try to see the issue from the other person's perspective before stating your opinion. Maintain confidentiality. What is said in the classroom stays in the classroom. Now, given when you're applying this online, what you say online is online and the internet is forever. You know what I mean? There's no, I mean, people try to be confidential. I don't, I keep all of my work stuff off of my public profiles because I recognize not everybody's reasonable, not everybody's rational, and people have to go digging to find where I work, which the fact that that person did that, don't know how long it took him, maybe a couple hours. I try to keep everything locked down. Then they go around and try to find where I work, and I don't have where I work posted anywhere. So they had to really look to try to figure out where I work. That's problematic behavior. And when you're dealing with people like that, there's not much you can do. But if you have a record of respectful engagement saying, "Hey, I don't appreciate tone like this. If you want to talk with me, I'm happy to listen. But you're not going to scream at me and swear at me and harass me and my friends online. I'm not going to talk with you." And that's not an unreasonable boundary. Because this is what I have a whole master's just in this, as well as a master's in chemistry. I have a whole master's in how to talk to people and educate them. So I'm not going to listen to people behave in this way. And I shouldn't have to, you know? Ugh. So Sinister Porpoise says, I'm going to disagree there. The internet is long term, but not forever. Eventually, we will get to the point where we cannot produce enough storage space for all the data. I mean, fair enough. Liquid Flame says they were determined. Yes, they were. Yeah, they had to look. I think I have a picture of myself and my full name on the college website, but that's the only place where you would see my picture next to my name with my job is on the actual college website because it's not anywhere else. Man, I'm about to pick up this CPU and toss it out into the snow seems to happen only on weekends when no tech support is available. That bugs start chewing on my nerves. I'm sorry. You use intentional strategies to help students deal with and learn from difficult dialogues. Managing hot moments in the classroom. I mean, you monitor yourself. Do some thinking ahead of time about what issues may hit a nerve with you personally and how you might deal with that. If a difficult dialogue is already taking place, try to stay in touch with your own emotions. Keep a cool head, guys. Being aware of your feelings can help you keep them in check and prevent them from driving your response. Just cooler heads prevail just about all the time. Do not avoid difficult topics simply because you feel uncomfortable dealing with them. At the same time, do not introduce controversy into the classroom for its own sake. Again, think carefully about how engaging in difficult dialogues contributes to your own learning goals for the class session and for the course as a whole. So with recent events, because it made me late to one class, and I figured other students would talk to each other. So I was just honest about what happened, um, about things that I didn't agree with, things that I did agree with, and then I got the response from students. And then I also told them I have experience with online harassment. And I wanted to make it known because this is a common thing. I'm going to pull up some Pew research. I want to pull up some Pew research about online harassment. Um, it's common. It's common for people to be harassed, particularly women, and stalked online. It happened to me when I was in college. I didn't have any support. And one of the things to help students, particularly where I teach, 70% are poverty line. There's a lot of different things they experience, social issues. And some of these social issues come through and affect whether or not they can get an education. So I often talk about social issues as a means to help educate and also to let students know we have programs to help them finish their education if they're affected by online harassment or stalkers. Or I helped a student find a new place to live through connecting them with some programs at the college because they had an in-person stalker and it was affecting their ability to complete their homework. This stuff is real. And if you want your students to be successful, you sometimes have to talk about, say, "Hey, look, this happened to me too. When I went to school, I saw a lot of this stuff going on, and I recognize it's real." So I know I can't imagine. I was a white woman and I was going through this. I can't imagine if I had been a black woman, all of the extra stuff that would have been piled onto me. And I tell my students, if you don't feel comfortable talking with me about a problem and you want to talk to somebody, let me know. I will connect you with somebody you can talk to and they can help you. You have help here. Um, so that was a lot of my language this week with my students, and they appreciated that. It's important as a professor to be human with your students and let them know, hey, we can, I get it. This stuff happens and I can help you if you need me to. And if I can't help you, I can at least find somebody who can help you. So a lot of my conversations were going that route. And my students appreciate me for that. So I wanted to bring that up. All right. Aunt Jur, sorry, Jur is in fur. I remember that. You can always decide to disengage from a conversation. You don't have to respond to everything. That's correct. You don't have to respond to everything. And oftentimes, it's best to just disconnect and walk away. Better for your mental health, well established boundaries. They're fantastic. I really had to start putting up more boundaries for myself, particularly when the pandemic started, because I was overextending myself. I couldn't I felt like I had to be available to my students 24/7 because I care about them, and that was not sustainable. Um, so now I have good solid boundaries. I'm able to get the work done that I need to get done. I'm able to help people. I'm able to do things that I need to do without it becoming exhausting. Um, there is so much available on how to talk to people. Oh, you're welcome, Aunt Jer. That's one thing that's one thing that I feel is really, really important is saying people's names correctly. And given the diverse population of students that I have, I tell them, if I say your name incorrectly, please let me know. I don't want to say it incorrectly more than 3 times because it will stick in my brain that way, and your name is very important. Um, it's how you call yourself, it's how you want to be called, you know? So it's important. It's important to recognize how people want to be addressed. It's a respect thing, and it's just decency, human decency. We're lacking that so much. Uh, Here's the Pew Research Center. We got the latest numbers on online harassment. Woohoo! I also think it's funny when I use hyperbole on here. Sometimes people take it to the extreme and think I'm being serious. I am not the Joker, guys. I'm not a DC villain. Y'all make me way cooler than what I am sometimes. She's a DC villain. I always find it interesting. I mean, I should just have a whole episode where I read mean tweets, right? And just be crying with laughter. Oh, microbloganism. I can say that, microbloganism. I'll just call you that if I can't say your name right. I do apologize when I mess up people's names. The state of online harassment. Let's talk about this. 4 in 10 Americans aren't all DC characters villains. Probably in some form. So growing shares face more severe online abuse, such as sexual harassment or stalking. 41% of US adults have personally experienced online harassment. Let me blow this up a bit more. Ah, we've got the complete report here. I love Pew Research, they do some great stuff. And 25% have experienced more severe harassment. So that's 1 in 4 people have experienced severe online harassment. 1 in 5 adults report being harassed online for their political views. I believe that. Most online harassment targets say their most recent experience occurred on social media. Yeah, that's usually does. That's usually how we see it. Most Americans are critical of how social media companies address online harassment. Only a minority say users should be able to hold sites legally responsible. Ah, it's just one of those things. So, some of the main points: personal experiences with online harassment, characterizing people's most recent online harassment experience, and Americans' views on online harassment, on how it should be addressed. Offensive name calling is the less severe form of online harassment. Purposeful embarrassment is considered less severe. We got physical threats, stalking, sustained harassment. So here we've got percent of adults. Most of the time, around the 40%, it's offensive name calling and character attacks. Right around close to 25%, we get the stalking stuff. Any online harassment in general, more severe behaviors and multiple behaviors. About 28% there, 25% on the severe. So here's the Pew Research definition of online harassment: offensive name calling, purposeful embarrassment, stalking, physical threats, harassment over a sustained period of time, and sexual harassment. So this is how they get their data, that they measure these particular factors. They did this through talking with respondents. They go a bit further and say more severe and less severe, which we've kind of seen some of that. 20% of the harassment is for political views. Used to be about 14% years ago, and the last time they did this particular study. Social media is by far the most common venue cited for harassment, a pattern consistent across the center's work over the years on this topic. The latest survey finds that 75% of targets of online abuse, equaling 31% of Americans overall, say their most recent experience was on social media. So 55% of adults say that it's a major problem. The majority of adults say online harassment is a major problem. I tend to agree with that, having been a person who has received multiple behaviors, anywhere from offensive name calling to stalking, all the way to it spilling over into dealing, where they're calling my employer. 37% consider it a minor problem. I wonder if that 37% have dealt with the more severe forms, I would say they probably haven't. Women tend to receive more severe behaviors than men. Let's see. Ages 18 to 49 tend to make up the largest demographic of those who receive harassment. Gender plays a role in the type of harassment. Women targeted in online harassment are more than twice as likely as men to say most recent incident was very or extremely upsetting. Go after women a lot worse. We kind of talked about this. Political views, gender, race, ethnicity. It's about 33% among all adults. Gender, the transphobic people. Sexual orientation is less so. Pew Research does such a great job on breaking down a lot of this. Forum discussion sites, about 25%. Not nearly as much with online gaming. Are y'all getting better? Are gamers behaving now? Oh my goodness. So a majority say social media companies are doing an only fair or poor job addressing online harassment. So the majority people think that social media companies aren't really addressing this. It would be very effective in helping to reduce harassment or bullying. 51% say people got permanently suspended. if they bully or harass others, or requiring users of these platforms to disclose their real identities. I mean, maybe. 63% say you should not be able to sue social media companies, while 33% say you do. So that's about 1 in 3 people think you should. So it's still pretty interesting. Um, Personal experiences. I mean, this is a very in-depth report. I won't go through all of this. I think this just goes into a bit more of it. So this was taken a couple of years ago. I imagine in about 2 more years they'll check again. Uh, yeah, I don't think people should disclose their full name because of what horrible people do. Uh, I don't need more harassment from people on the internet. And it gets into more detail, but you can take a look at some of these this yourself under Pew Research. Pew Research and hit a lot of those points and kind of see the state of online harassment from 2 years ago. Still probably relevant research. It's less than 5 years. Um, so how do you talk to people? How you talk to people online is important. If you want them to listen to you, you have to engage in respectful discourse. Um, I get some people, they have traumatic experiences and they use social media in order to disclose that information in the way that they choose. I would never tell a person how they should express their trauma. That is up to them. I will say, if you want productive discussions on how to elicit change and get people to understand where you're coming from, you're going to have to understand that you're also talking to another human being. And swearing at them and cussing at them and, calling them names and character attacks, that's not gonna win you their argue to that's not gonna win them to your argument. Um, it's important that we have difficult discussions. It's important that we discuss difficult topics, but how we do it also matters. You'll never see an anti-vaxxer on my channel. You'll never see a flat earther. You won't see any of those people. I will not give them my microphone because I know how important perception is based on how a person speaks. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about my views since I've encountered individuals with oh gosh, such hateful rhetoric towards, they call surrogate women handmaids, um, to women that are already hurting, like in vitro fertilization in infertile women, saying they don't deserve to have children. Um, and they're saying this because they themselves were hurt through that process of adoption and that sort of thing. There's no life that's free from trauma. And there's nothing, there's no perfect way to fix everything. So we have to come together to understand um, that, yes, we need to have hard discussions. We need to discuss what's wrong with different things and what we can do to come to a resolution. We have all got to come together to do that. And by screaming at each other, that's not necessarily going to work either. You can have respectful discourse and you can call out other people who are, verbally abusing others and say, "Hey, that's not cool, man. We need to just take a step back and go, all right, let's try to talk. Let's try to talk with a respectful tone." And if people misrepresent that as you're trying to tell me tone police, I'm like, well, I mean, you can express your trauma how you want, but I don't have to listen to you if you're screaming profanities at me and calling me names because I blocked you due to your worrying behavior that I've seen on social media. That's not how you're going to have productive discussion. And I'm not required to have a productive discussion with anyone. So until we understand that nobody is actually entitled to anyone's time unless you're getting paid for a particular job, nobody's entitled to you unless there's an understanding that they are. I don't have an understanding with anybody on Twitter except maybe my patrons. They want to talk to me, they can always talk to me. Um, my job, my students, people I work for, they are entitled to a certain amount of my time. But random people on the internet who want to call me names and scream at me, you're not entitled to my time. And I'm not entitled to anybody's time. I'm not entitled to their time. They don't have to talk to me. They don't have to explain their stance if they don't want to. That's fine too. They're like, well, I don't want to have to speak with you civilly to explain it to you. That's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm okay with that. If you are not in a place where you feel like you can explain to me what the issues are and what you would like to see changed, then that's all right. You don't have to. I'm not entitled to your time, and you are not entitled to mine. Have you ever had someone become a patron so they can have access to you and harass you? Not yet. Not that I know of. Not that I know of. I know that's happened to other people. My God. I know that's happened to other people. Um, but there you go. Somebody doesn't want to tell me what in a civil manner what those issues are. They don't have to. That's okay. That's okay. Somebody else can. I often go in if there's somebody who's harassing another person, not even harassing, but if there's somebody who wants to have a productive discussion about a particular topic, I can't talk to this person anymore. I just can't do it. They're making me nuts. ScientistMel, can you help with discussing what evolution is? I'm like, sure, I can do that. And then I can come in and say, hey, I'm happy to talk about the evidence of evolution with you if you're interested. I might do that sometimes. That's okay. Doesn't matter. But we're all human beings and we need to remember that. We really need to remember that. All right. Let's read some Mr. Rogers. Which section should we read out of today? The World According to Mr. Rogers. I love Mr. Rogers. He's great. We Are All Neighbors. Let's read something from We Are All Neighbors because we forget that sometimes. And I honestly, there are some days I'm like, I don't think Mr. Rogers would have been proud of me 100%. I did not handle this as well as I would like to, but it's also important to self-reflect and think, how could I have handled this better? And I do that. I'm not always vocal about it, but I do it. Let's see. Let's see. Let me find a good one I haven't read before. There's so much stuff in here. How about this one? I've read this one before, but I really like it. So this is The World According to Mr. Rogers. If you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of, there is something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. I think it was Maya Angelou said, "People won't remember what you said or what you did, they'll remember how you made them feel." Um, and that's a true thing too. Even if the facts contradict what your feelings are, people will still remember how they feel. I mean, we got that nasty effect and all that other stuff. Feelings can skew perception of facts. And it's hard, sometimes when you're trying to battle that. So, if you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never dream of, there is something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. Goodness, I miss Mr. Rogers. I miss him so much. And one more thing. So, what's your goal of communication? Do you want to be divisive? Do you want to be educational? Do you want to learn? Any interaction you have online, think about, what is my goal of this interaction? Um, Maybe if your goal is to be divisive, then you can do that. And you might be good at it. One last quote. It's very dramatic when two people come together to work something out. It's easy to take a gun and annihilate your opposition. But what is really exciting to me is to see people with differing views come together and finally respect each other. I think that's very apt, particularly now. It's very dramatic when two people come together to work something out. It's easy to take a gun and annihilate your opposition. But what is really exciting to me is to see people with differing views come together and finally respect each other. And we can only do that by being kind, right? Even if you have a lot of pain, I've been traumatized before, but being traumatized does not excuse traumatizing other people. You might understand why someone's doing that, and that's fine, but that's still not a reason or an excuse. But what is really exciting to me is to see people with differing views come together and finally respect each other. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. You're missed. And Louise, who recently passed away, Mr. Fix It Shop on Sesame Street. Thank you for all those years that you dedicated to educating children. That's all I have for now, guys. Um, I'm going to leave it with this and say, you always make each day special for me. You know how? By gesture being you. I'll see you next time. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And feel free to message me if ever you need anything. Bye.